Away. Kind of feel like I'm cheating playing in front of an audience like you guys. It's like a very, very comfortable space, and the music kind of just very easy to play for you, so thank you for that. Any questions about anything? You know?
So what is it about improv that appeals to you as a musician?
That's a great question. He wants to know what it is about improv that appeals to me, right? I think that's the closest thing to who we are spiritually, because what we really like to do is create. And improvisation happens to be a word that we used in classical music, certainly in jazz, and in art forms, and ballet, and poetry, and many forms. And it really falls under the big heading of creativity. And I think that's what people really like to do. And I call my music now music because I like to create in the moment what I hear and feel. So in this particular show, except for that piece, I don't even know what I'm going to play. And it's scary sometimes, but it certainly keeps you out of your comfort zone. Does that help?
You hit it right on the spot.
Oh, good. Well, it's innate to all of us, creativity. You know, it's the stresses of life and the survival factors that sometimes throw us off, and we forget that's what we're supposed to do. But as far as I'm concerned, if one could find half hour, an hour a day to do the things that are their passions, it will actually help the survival. And if it doesn't help it financially, you'll feel emotionally better.
Mike, we were talking and you said that a lot of your music is improvised and it just kind of goes out into space and it dissipates into wherever it goes. But is there music that comes back to you that you keep referring to and have fond memories of?
Yes, both are true. I feel that the notes are floating around out there, and they find me or I find them. And certainly a lot of the music that I've written, I think at this point it's over 4,500 pieces of music since I started composing. And half of it is classical, and the other half is a mixture of jazz and pop and rock. But I find that there are certain composers that I resonate with: Rachmaninoff, Chopin, Bach, many jazz musicians, Keith Jarrett, Bill Evans, Art Tatum, Oscar Peterson, and contemporary composers, from the 20th century. I like Bartók and Ligeti and Scriabin, and it goes on and on. So I do, Gershwin, I do gravitate to their music more as an inspiration and as a theme or a motif to improvise from. Because I think if we imitate, which is good in the training period, but if we imitate as an end result, we're only capturing a temporary moment of who we might think we are by our inspirations, but ultimately we live with ourselves all the time, so it's best for the music to come from who you are.
Well, so kind of tying into that, your background, jazz and classical musician, how is it that you find such inspiration in working with artists such as David Bowie and Smashing Pumpkins and Nine Inch Nails, where you're touring with them and every night doing a set list over and over again? Where do you find your inspiration to do that?
Well, I'm sort of have carte blanche when I'm out with David Bowie, because I improvise 80% on live concerts too with him. I'm the only one in the band that he allows to do that. Most of the other parts are pretty well set. I do play my intros and endings fairly consistent, so I don't drive him too crazy. I have at times, and he's turned around. Where are we? When does the tune start? We were playing China Girl in Paris about 8 years ago in a live show, and when I went on stage, there were 6 background singers here in the band, and I knew this was live. And I played the intro in the wrong key. And as I played it, I knew I screwed up, and I couldn't stop, and all the eyes of the singers looked at me. It looked like deer when you're driving down the road, And I thought, oh shit, you know. And then all of a sudden, David turns around and looks at me, and I thought, oh, this is not good. And in this 8 seconds on this intro of China Girl, I think all our lives passed by, and it felt like 2 years, and I felt like, oh, this is why people give up playing, and this is how you get stage fright. So somehow, by God's will or something, they all ended up in the right key, and I hopped back in. They must have had a mental, cellular memory of that song. The next day we were playing in Glastonbury in front of 100,000 people. I hadn't seen David for a whole day, and I think he thought I was messing with him. And I told him, I'm sorry, I just blanked out. Well, for the next 20 concerts, every time China Girl came up, the band and him would look at me, waiting, you know. And it took about 20 concerts before it dissolved, you know. So that was quite an experience. Questions?